Just warn me if the cows are coming any closer, because I'm sitting in a kind of, I don't know what this is, a nature reserve. I have walked about 6 kilometers and we are going to do our first answer thingy. I always find that when I have to answer questions that it's a lot easier for me to come in nature and to think while I'm walking. You've asked me so many interesting questions. I wrote them down because my printer wasn't working. Yeah. What motivates me? What idea do I carry? For the person, it is the thought of fulfilling their potential. What are my sources of inspiration, my input? What do I consume? Honestly, I never really believed in the idea of fulfilling your potential. In high school, I don't know if it was my undiagnosed ADHD, but I don't really think ADHD was a problem. My teachers always told me, you have so much more in you, you should fulfill your potential, don't waste your potential. And I can get why this is for some people their motto, but it definitely isn't for me. I think it's a little bit superficial to just say that to people without saying how. You know, what is your potential? How do you fulfill your potential? How do you even measure potential? Is this a thing that's really prominent now? Fulfilling your potential, being productive, doing more. A wasp. It's so beautiful here. The little pollen are like snowflakes of summer. I think fulfilling your potential doesn't mean anything. I think it's the choices we make and why we make them and how we stand by them is really what drives us. Then we will find a way anyhow. If you just say fulfill your potential, then this is so vague. If you know why you're doing stuff and what you want and the kind of person you want to be, how you want to fulfill your life, I think that's way more important than just fulfilling your potential. I always think about death a lot. I don't know if this is a triggering topic for some people. If I would die in 5 years or in 1 year, would I still be doing the stuff that I'm doing? I think it's very important that we organize our life in such a way that you are really making the choices for you and doing stuff that aligns with you, and then the drive, like the energy, is coming anyway. Of course, there's days we are not motivated. That's when we can turn to inspirations like, for me, for example, David Goggins, but also the books I read. But I think drive really comes forth out of yourself and not out of content that you consume. I think, for example, on the Belgian coast walk, when I was really struggling, I didn't think about David Goggins. I was thinking to myself, I have so much more left in me. I can definitely finish this. And this kind of source is coming out of you and how you think about your life and what you've been through and your experiences. I can motivate you maybe, but I cannot drive you. I get this question so much. How do you stay productive? How do you live the life that you're living? How did you change? I can't give you an answer that would satisfy you because it's something that really comes forth out of myself, out of the choices I made and didn't make in my life. Stephen Covey said something, begin with the end in mind. I haven't read his whole book, but I really think that's powerful to, when you make a choice, where do you think the choice is going to lead you if you decide to go or not to go to the gym? Begin with the end in mind. Are you going to feel better? Are you going to feel worse? Thinking about outcomes is very useful, but not in a way that you are only concerned with the future. You should also try to live in the moment, I think. Also, I'm very careful with the content I consume. I don't like to watch reels or shorts if they are not providing me something. What you consume is very important. It shapes your mind. You should also consume content that doesn't agree with your persona. For example, like ways of thinking that you don't agree with. I think it's very important to consume that content as well, because you never know. You might learn something or learn what you don't want or don't agree with. And yeah, that's how I think about consuming content. It's a very long answer. Okay, I forgot my leaves. I'm going to get them. Your videos are filled with inspiring quotes. Do you have a quote or motto that you live by? So what I just said with the choices, make sure that you know why you're making your choices and that you live by your choices. But also consistency. I think consistency is a world wonder that we haven't really figured out yet, how the compound interest works. I think it's very interesting. But someone told me also this like a year ago. He told me, or 2 years ago, and I don't know, but he told me you should treat others the way you want to be treated yourself. And I would add to that, you should treat yourself the way you would treat someone you love. Those two things are like key ways of thinking in my life. I try to treat others the way I wanted to be treated, but also I am treating myself as I would treat my best friend, for example. I try to be my own biggest fan and to drive myself on and to motivate myself. I know I can do stuff. When I feel a little down, I try to talk to myself like I would talk to a good friend. But I could say a lot of stuff about this, but we have a lot more questions to go through. So the greatest study tip you've heard about, it's definitely sleep. I don't know about you, but I've heard so much. I wouldn't have passed that exam if I didn't study all night, and I don't agree with you. I think you would have done a lot better if you slept, because when you sleep, you consolidate. When you sleep, you don't only consolidate your memories. The way your brain works is also that you have to retrieve stuff. The way your brain works is that you also have to retrieve stuff from your brain, and you can only do that if you sleep. You can do active recall, all of that stuff, but if you don't sleep, none of it matters. How do you stay consistent? I want to lose fat and gain muscle to become a little more healthy. Do you have any tips? So first of all, less fat doesn't mean always healthier, especially for women. You should look up what the healthy range of fat percentage is for you. And to lose fat and gain muscle is very hard, but I think it's possible in my opinion. I'm also doing this at the moment. I'm trying to lose a little bit of my fat percentage. Also, trigger warning if this is triggering for anyone. I know I said it a little bit too late. I just move a lot. I do a lot of low heart rate zone activity like walking, cycling, rollerblading, and staying in those low heart rate zones burns a lot more fat than if you would, like, for example, do sprints. Don't go too low below your calorie maintenance, and eat enough protein. I would also say to not lose too much muscle if you're losing fat percentage. I'm not an expert in this. I just consume a lot of content, podcasts, books, but I'm definitely not an expert in this, so please don't take my advice as the truth or something. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Oh man, I think about this question so much. I hope I will be doing a PhD in psychology. That's my dream. Where I would be, I think I would not be living at home anymore, and that my house would kind of be small, but in nature. I would definitely I would not live in a city for sure. I would rather cycle to the city, even if it's more than 20 kilometers, than live in the city. I would be living in nature, baking potteries, I think, books that actually fit in my shelf, because mine currently isn't very fit for all my books. I would have run my first marathon and probably be doing long distances. Hopefully I will still be doing YouTube. I just want to be at peace with myself and my environment and with nature. I know it sounds a little cheesy, but it's just a place where I can think and be myself. So I will be playing an instrument as well in my videos and making my own music in my videos. That would be pretty cool. How are you able to study for more than 3 hours a day? Do you read stuff out loud? No, I never. Sometimes I do a little bit of a Feynman technique, but I don't read stuff out loud because I can't gather my thoughts if I read stuff. So usually I just read it a lot of times in my head. And how I'm able to study more than 3 hours a day, I don't always study more than 3 hours a day, especially in the beginning of the semester. I study a lot, for sure, because I really love psychology. I am really passionate about my studies. I passed all my exams, by the way, but I would still like to study psychology in the vacation, if I'm being honest, because I just love to learn psychology. There's days that I don't want to study, of course, but usually it isn't such a struggle for me. What if you don't get your PhD? What if I don't qualify? What if I can't do it? First of all, failure for me isn't a bad thing. Of course, I would feel bad, but I would try again and again and maybe find other ways to do a PhD. And if it still wasn't possible, then I would specialize myself in psychology, doing a master after master. Maybe, I don't know, in psychology, definitely trying to specialize myself, not by doing a PhD, but by doing other stuff. And yeah, I don't know my life would turn out like, but I'm sure I would find a way to fulfill my life in other ways because I trust that I can make good decisions. Okay. Even though it's very beautiful here, we are moving on to another spot because I'm kind of scared of bugs. Now I'm going to answer the 3 rather personal questions. How did you achieve your lifestyle? What did you do before uni? And what made you decide to study psychology? They all 3 bind together pretty well. Before university, I studied languages at high school, but I never really studied. I didn't have the mindset. I also didn't really feel at home at high school. I think a lot of students can relate to that. I made a lot of wrong choices after high school, also not only study-wise, but also in my personal life. I studied biomedical science for 1 month, then studied psychology actually at uni. Didn't succeed, then tried philosophy, didn't succeed, then tried graphic design. I did okay at graphic design, but it wasn't quite what I imagined graphic design to be. For example, it wasn't creative enough for me. I was really falling kind of into a loop of self-destruction in my personal life, and then school wasn't aligning with who I was. So at a certain point, I was thinking to myself, there's some things that have to change. If I don't, then I don't know if I will find my way in this world. A lot of bad things happened. That kind of made me realize that I only have one life. I know this sounds really, really serious, and also a little cheesy. It kind of shifted my mindset. I started to fix my issues, my mental issues, but also issues with my family, and also try to think more about the choices that I make. So back again with the choices. That was also ultimately what made me find my way. And when I decided to study psychology, which actually was with the intention to help people, so I wanted to give creative therapy, that's why I chose psychology initially, but then my interests kind of shifted to experimental psychology because I loved psychology as a science. That's why I have the lifestyle I have, because some stuff happened, and then I decided that I wanted to be different, and I wanted my life to be different. I actually do all the things I do because they make me feel alive, and they make me feel like me. So I don't have to be very disciplined all the time. It's all very aligning with who I am and what makes me feel good. So I'm first going to scrap the questions that I've already answered with this pen I found on the way. So just a minute. Okay, so that's an interesting question here. What's the coolest thing you learned in psychology? So in psychology we learned something very interesting, which is called the opponent processing theory in learning psychology actually. From Solomon, you have an A process and you have a B process, and the A process stays the same, which could be also trigger warning if addiction or drugs is triggering for you. The A process is like taking a drug and the good feeling of taking the drug, and the B process is the underlying process, which in the beginning isn't very effective, but the B process becomes longer and more intense the more you take a drug. So it's called tolerance. The interesting thing about this is that there's also kind of conditioning taking place in the environment. So being in a place where you used to use is causing craving. The B process actually protects you from overdose. So you can take more of a drug in a certain place without it killing you, but it could also be that when you take the same amount of drugs in a new environment where the conditioning didn't take place, that you could overdose because the conditioning of the B process didn't take place. And I think that's a very interesting phenomenon. You could also apply this opponent process theory to running. In the beginning, you feel more strain in running than actually high. When you get better at running, the high gets more prominent. It's dynamics of effects, it's also called. It's very interesting. I think it's very interesting. What is missing from your psychology course, and what's your favorite thing about it? What's missing is more body connection. So I think we're in psychology, we're a lot focused on what's happening inside the head, which makes sense, but the body is also very important when you research the mind, because I think people see them separately, but they are very connected. I think they're more connected than separate. People with healthier muscles, it seems associated with less cognitive degenerative disorders, something like that. I think what's missing in psychology is more studies of the body and the muscles and how it connects to the brain. And what's your favorite thing about it? I like everything in psychology except my favorite thing about psychology is maybe all the experimental stuff. My favorite word in psychology is synesthesia. It's like the blending of your senses. So when you hear music, sometimes people see the music. They see colors, they see things vibrating. They can really visualize the music, but like really in a sense of they see it, not just imagining. You speak Dutch and English. Are you interested in languages? Which languages would you want to learn? Obviously, I studied languages, so I'm pretty interested in languages. Weirdly enough, I wouldn't want to know the psychology of languages, more interested in the culture. Like, I would love to learn Mandarin or something like, or Japanese or Arabic, something like that. I would really love to learn really weird languages for me then, with like a different alphabet. I also studied Greek for 3 years, I think, until we couldn't study that at our school anymore. So I'm really interested. I really loved Greek more than Latin, in my opinion, because it's a very different alphabet. And also, yeah, I just love Greek mythology as well. Also, which languages do I speak aside from English? French a little, but I can speak French, English, Dutch. I would say a little German and a little Spanish, but I'm still learning those two. Do you have a favorite perspective video? Yes, I do. It's called What Can You Do at 5 in the Morning? It's a really short one. I got inspired to do that video because of a song I heard on Epidemic Sounds, and usually this happens with me. I listen to a song and then suddenly I get inspired and want to make a video on the song. But now I wanted to make a video clip specifically on that song. It really portrayed how my life was looking at that moment, waking up at 5 a.m. and just going to the gym, doing just normal stuff like eating an egg in the morning and trying to make it look authentic and raw and just the usual. I wanted to make something very simple, and that's what I really love about the video, is that it's very simple. It's just a routine, but just, yeah, I don't know, it gives me a great feeling to watch the video. What cool video would you really like to do in the future? Something similar, but more personal, a lot more personal. It's also a video clip on a song that really was very speaking to a certain moment in my life. It's too personal for me to make it right now. And also, I don't have the skills to make it how I want it in my head, because I've been melding over that video in my mind so much about how I want it to be very artistic, but also very raw, and speaking about the rawness and the problem also, because it's very romanticized in society. But I don't want it to look romanticized at all. I want it to be very how it is and how it feels. So yeah, that's a future video that I will probably make, but don't have on my schedule right now, and also don't have the skills for right now. Goals with starting the channel. I actually started the channel with the idea to help people study, because that was something I struggled with, as I told you earlier, and also making videos about mental health. But it kind of evolved to vlogging and giving another kind of value, which is peace and motivation to people, which actually aligned with me more because I could express myself better through vlogs. If I put a number on the goal, I would say that in the first year I wanted to grow to 1K subscribers, and also wanted to be good at making videos about study content, like how to study and also on how to help people mentally. Would you do a series on psychology facts? No. Actually, no, because I don't consider myself researched enough to do that kind of stuff. I really would love to make a podcast like Andrew Huberman has, specifically about research in psychology, maybe when I have a PhD or when I'm more qualified to do this, because I love to speak about psychology and different kind of theories, but I don't consider myself experienced enough to do that right now. Do you study when you're tired? No, because I don't. I try to, but it doesn't work pretty well for me. Usually I just go to sleep and wake up earlier and do the rest in the morning. Do you like to play games? Plus, how tall are you? I did used to love playing games. I had a Nintendo. I also played Grand Theft Auto with my auto, do you say it like that? GTA with my brother on the PSP. I used to play Sims 3, that's where I learned all my English, actually. I'm a huge Minecraft fan, still to this day, that's the only game I would still play. And also Hogwarts Legacy, I want to play that game for such a long time, but I don't really make the time for gaming right now. It's been so long since I measured myself, but I think I remember the last time I was 1 meter and 69 centimeters, but I could be wrong. So I think 1 meter and 70, around that. What future plans for the channel? Do you have any series in mind? I have so many plans for the channel in the future. I won't discuss them right now, but I am thinking about doing a new series and a new challenge also, so stay tuned. Zou je eens een meetup willen doen in Gent? Ja. Als er daar vraag naar is en als mensen dat graag zouden willen, dan zou ik daar zeker voor openstaan. Ik heb wel zelf totaal geen ervaring met meetups. Ik zou dat een keer moeten opzoeken hoe dat allemaal in zijn werk gaat. Maar ja, als mensen daar down voor zijn, dan zie ik dat zeker zitten. Maar ik denk wel dat ik zo iets als activiteit zou doen of zo. Iets creatief of zo. Dat we niet gewoon enkel praten, maar dat we ook iets tof doen of zo. Ik weet niet. Dat is hoe dat ik het zou zien. What are your thoughts on marriage? Marriage from someone in Bangladesh. I looked the situation up in Bangladesh, and I think if I were you, I would also be afraid or just think that no man is trustworthy. Or me personally, I never thought of myself as someone who would marry. Yeah, I think if you find the right person, and there's definitely great men in the world. So if I were in your situation, I would also consider staying alone. I also wouldn't mind spending my life alone, I think, but I also think that I'm kind of singular in this opinion. But yeah, I do think that the idea of marriage is pretty nice if you really find someone that you align with well and all that kind of stuff. I hope this answers your question a little bit, because I find it really hard to say something about this kind of stuff when it's completely different in my own country. So I still have a whole 2 pages of stuff. Maybe I will first check my battery. I think I'll answer these questions on the way, because we still have 10 kilometers more to do and my muscles will get really sore if I keep on sitting here. So. I'm going to film the last part in my garden because my phone almost died, so I thought I'd finish the walk first and then finish the last part of the questions. What's the drive behind your YouTube channel? Inspire, record a journey. I think a little bit of everything. To inspire people, motivate people, bring them peace, but also to record my journey, all the work I've put in, and to look back on that and have kind of a video diary. As a forms, eh? Do you study best at the library or at home? I think at home, for me, I used to say at the library, but I think my focus is a lot better at home, and the library just helps if I need some peer pressure to study for longer when I'm unfocused. I think Gilmore Girls is something we really watch in psychology, but I don't know if it's psychology specific. A professor that inspires me, the professor of learning psychology, partly because I'm very interested in learning psychology, but also because he really inspires students to ask questions and to really take the material and try to understand it. And I think that's the main job of a professor, but he does it so well. He explains it very well. He gives extra material. You can ask him questions per mail, and he answers. He actually answers and gives you also extra papers to read and stuff. But also kind of I don't know him for the record, but how he presents himself, how he uses his kids as examples, sometimes mentions like little anecdotes about his life. His lifestyle really inspires me for some reason. He just keeps it simple and he seems not very materialistic, which I kind of resonate with that. A favorite painter? My favorite painter is Francis Bacon, because he is so good at just painting souls the way they are, without like the color use, and how it's very raw also, but also how I don't know, it's kind of sad, his paintings, and kind of aggressive sometimes, but I think he's just misunderstood. Did you become the therapist of your friend group, and do you like that role? So for the record, I'm not studying clinical psychology. A lot of people think when they hear someone studying psychology, and completely justified, because 90% of students in psychology study clinical psychology, but for me, I study experimental psychology, so that's like I'm with 20 out of 1,000 students who start at psychology who chooses like the more scientific part of psychology, so more statistics, more research paradigms, and just the really cool and fun stuff of psychology. Also, clinical psychology is amazing as well. So no, I'm not really the therapist of the friend group. I think I'm a good listener, but I don't think I am therapizing people. I don't know. For sure, you should ask my best friend. The feared psychology course or feared professor, definitely Johnny. I had him this semester, and I was scared the hell by everyone talking about him, and everyone was telling me, yeah, I'm always passing for exams, but for him I didn't pass twice, or people who even have to retake his exam 5 times. I really have to prepare very well for this exam, and I passed, luckily. But I was really scared. Which sports do I like to watch aside from the ones I practice? Honestly, I don't watch a lot of sports. I used to watch a lot of gymnastics and figure skating. When I was younger, I also did gymnastics, and I also did figure skating for 1 year. Yeah, aside from that, athletics sometimes. Sprinting, I love sprinting. If you see someone staring really intensely at you while you're running, it's probably me, because I love to watch people run. Yeah, the World Cup, but yeah, I think everyone just watches this for the vibe. I think when you see really great players or people who are really good at their sport, that the sport automatically becomes so much more interesting. For example, I watched a documentary about Ronaldo, and I think his way of playing is very gracious, and their movement is just so precise. If you hadn't chosen psychology, what could you have done? So I've been thinking about this question a lot during the walk, but I think computer science or neuroscience or anything that aligns with psychology. Maybe you would ask why computer science doesn't align with psychology at all, but actually I think it really does, especially AI, and how the predictive system just works in our head seems a lot similar to AI. And if I would study another degree after psychology, it would probably be something with computer science or engineering, because it would learn me so much more about the brain, I think. Also, it's always in function of psychology when I think about studying something else. So What I also thought about is maybe doing sports sciences, but like the movement sciences. I don't know if it's the right word, but also for psychology to have more insight in how the muscles work in connection to the brain and stuff. Something that I wouldn't maybe actually study, but I'm taking some extra courses on next year is consumer research psychology, so why people buy stuff, manipulation that is going on. Same with mathematics. With AI, I'm also taking a subject on that. So I have a lot of interests, but nothing that's great enough to overthrow psychology, definitely. Favorite movie is The Neverending Story. A favorite TV show, I don't really have a favorite TV show. I think TV shows are more addictive for me than I really like them. Favorite fiction and non-fiction. Again with the books. I'll keep this question for later. Content for ADHD or non-divergent people. I think my content is already pretty focused on neurodivergent people because I have ADHD myself, so I think my content couldn't not be neurodivergent, if you know what I mean. I think my videos are already very calming for people with ADHD. How does ADHD impact your psychology major and YouTube? So I got diagnosed pretty late, as I mentioned before. I would say that ADHD has been more of a burden than actually helping me in my studies or with YouTube. So how it helps me, I don't know if it helps me at all. I would say it has been very bad for my focus, and I sometimes wish that my mind would just be a little less chaotic sometimes, but it also makes me the person that I am. And I think being chaotic and impulsive also made me do the channel. So for sure it has an influence on my YouTube, I think, because if I didn't have ADHD, I think I would not be posting as much as I am posting now, because the impulses of the ideas come sometimes and I just act on them. Neurotypical people are thinking more about that kind of stuff. Instead of people with ADHD, they are just acting on impulse and just doing sometimes. But that's true specifically for me. I don't know if that's true for you or for other people with ADHD. But yeah, for school, I don't think it has a very good impact. I find it really hard to plan out my stuff for school and to stay, if I'm not medicated, to not forget stuff and to just stay in my routines. If I take my medications, then it's a lot easier for me to live in general. I know that sounds very grim, but yeah, I just forget less stuff. I'm more able to stick to my routines. I think a lot clearer. You have to know that the mind is constantly with background noises, and I can't really think in a straight line. And with the medications, it helps me to pay attention in class and to get my stuff done. What is your dream job, and what would you do with your psychology diploma? I would love to be a researcher, but if my path decides otherwise, then I'll just follow my gut. Best plus worst thing about studying in Ghent. So the best thing about studying in Ghent is that everything is extremely close and very cozy. And the worst thing about studying in Ghent is that there's so much distraction. Yeah, I feel like, especially with nightlife, Ghent is very active, and in the past this has caused me some trouble for sure. And also, Ghent is really different by night, and I think I won't ever forget that image inside of my head of how Ghent sometimes is at night. So that would be the worst thing about Ghent, I think. The constant temptation. So yeah, I think I answered all your questions. Oh, the book question. 3 books that are not psychology. The Suffering of the Young Werther from Goethe, of how do you pronounce it? I don't know. Wolfgang Goethe. Any Greek mythology book. Ovidius is Greek mythology. He's a poet, and he basically wrote a whole book about how the Greek mythology, like how the gods were created and how the universe was created. It's a little bit like the Bible, but way more beautiful. I also really loved The Prophet of Khalil Gibran, but I wouldn't say it's in my top 3. I don't know. A non-fiction book, I don't even know where to start there. Een treurige prins, biography of Joti Tooft, a Belgian poet. It's very tragic. He died of addiction. But for me, it was really inspiring in some ways. Then David Goggins' story is my second one for nonfiction because it was inspiring in the sense of how people can bounce back from adversity. I also really love books from Gabor Maté, nonfiction books. Hungry Ghosts, also a book about addiction, very good book. Yeah, actually that was a really good book, Hungry Ghosts. You should really read that one. If you want me to make a book list for you to read or just some inspiration for different genres, I could also make one like that this summer, so just comment if you want my book list. Yeah, thank you. I hope I answered all the questions. If I didn't, please send me a message, then I could answer them anyway. Yeah, I think I answered all the questions. Thank you so much for watching this video, for always supporting me, and this is the end of the 3-part series of the 1-year perspective anniversary. I will remake this whole series next year, and I hope you already had a great summer, and yeah, thank you so much for watching.